Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Common Ground. My name is Josh, that's Chris, and this is the show where we bring you different news or different things that are going on in the world, and we try to bring you our perspectives from a Democrat and a Republican point of view. So, yeah, let's get right to it, Chris. This week, not much in the news, so much to discuss, or not many things that are making earth-shattering headlines. I did want to cover one thing.
Thank God we don't got to talk about Trump, or really we don't got to talk about Biden too much because we all know he's an idiot. But we haven't heard about Trump, and I'm kind of glad there's a little lull in the action with that, so we can move on to some fresh topics. So, what do you got
Yeah,
today,
yeah.
brother?
There's going to be no Trump on this episode, no Biden. We are done with those, at least for the time being. They're
It's
going to
gonna
come up and they're going to make news again. But for
it
for
is
right
gonna be
now,
about
we're
politics of some sort, though. We can promise you folks that.
yeah. Always going to be about politics and always going to be about our points of views here.
But
So
it's politics from two different sides of the aisle that and I truly believe us to both be patriots, even though I'm a Republican, Josh is a Democrat. There's no reason we can't both be patriots and have these discussions civilly and respectfully.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I believe no, even though we disagree on many things, I know that what Chris wants is for the best for our country, and he knows the same thing for me is I just want this country to move forward. I want this country to progress. I want us to be the best country in the world. Like this, it should be. It is. It always has been. And we should continue with that tradition. So regardless of our points of views, we do agree on that. And like Chris said, I think of him as a patriot, and you guys should think of me as a patriot. I want nothing but what's best for America. We just have different points of views and how we get there. So, but
And you know what?
nothing we can't get over.
This country's really hungry for that. I hope there's more of us out there. And for anybody who's just tuning in, we got several shows. You want to go back and check them out? Like us, subscribe, share, pass it on to your friends, family, people you love. And let's take America by the horns and bring it back to we the people.
Yeah, this is the only show that's not trying to divide you guys. This is the only show that we're not sitting here, telling you to vote one way or another way. So we're just trying to come together as Americans and just do something positive for everyone.
And in about
Um,
127 years, I'm going to see if I can get Josh to turn into a Republican. Anybody think I can do
yeah.
it? Comment down below.
Exactly. Yeah. Chris
What do
is,
you got,
slowly
Josh?
but surely,
Who's
he's trying to get me.
bothering you today in the federal government?
Man, out of all people, out of all, it's an institution this week. It's the Supreme Court justices that are in the
Uh
news,
oh. I
and
know where you're going with this one, but I'll let you talk about it and then I'll give you my
yeah,
opinion. We've already talked about it briefly, but I wasn't aware. I kind of thought you were going to be going down this road with the Supreme Court, but go ahead.
yeah, man. It's some news came out if you guys aren't aware or haven't been paying attention, but some news came out where Justice Thomas he had accepted some trips from a wealthy friend of his, and then also we had some revelations about another justice that sold some property to a law firm in which they are the law firm actually practices in front of the Supreme Court. So um, just those new revelations that came out, and I don't want to turn this into like a Republican bashing or anything like that because this is just what came out. So these were leaks. I'm not sure if every other justice is doing the same thing. We don't have any insight to this, and it's kind of the problem. It's we don't know. They don't have a they're supposed to follow a an ethics sort of agreement that they have amongst themselves, but there is no rule that covers Supreme Court justices. So they're not bound by the same rules that other federal justices or other federal judges are bound by. And I think that's a problem. And it should be no matter what side of the aisle you're on. We should not have Supreme Court, even um, the appearance that a Supreme Court justice is for take, or that you're able to, sway your way in with one of those.
So,
I mean, that
so
should be an institution.
I mean, just so everybody understands, there's a lot of news out there, and Josh and I we try to keep up with as much as we can, but we work full time jobs, and it's tough. But what I do know, and we don't know everything, we never will. But what I do know about Justice Thomas was, um, he's been accepting or has accepted for periods of time from I guess the guy, I don't remember the guy's name, but he's a Republican, a very wealthy Republican donor. and they went on some pretty lavish trips together. You know, I I think everybody in our government, including them, are well paid, well funded, and they all end up being rich. We don't ever, for the most part. I can see there being an argument there, but the other side of that is, are we just picking on Justice Thomas because he's conservative and the left don't like him? I mean, he did go on these trips. He didn't report them. But if it's they're truly friends, does it look bad that the guy's a wealthy Republican donor? Yeah, but where are the where's the evidence that Ginsburg used to do the same thing? I don't know about the sitting justice right now, but I know she went on hundreds of trips, or I shouldn't say hundreds, a hundred ish. I think Sotomayor has. I can't prove it. I just things I've heard on radio news when I'm driving to work. So are we just picking at one side or the other? I think that's a huge problem if we are. But I do agree with you that it is a problem face front. Um, these guys live like kings, and it's ridiculous why we live down here in the common folk world. And but is it because of just him? I don't know. I look at that on my side as the left has just found another thing to bitch about.
So I don't know, and the questions that you're asking, whether Sotomayor or Ginsburg or any other justice, we just don't know. Um, but I do want to point, and I don't know why this news was dropped. There's always 9 times out of 10 there's an ulterior motive to why a news is dropping or why a story is dropping at a certain time. So I'm not a clairvoyant. I have no idea. What I do know though is that I would not agree if Justice Sotomayor was taking a trip with I don't know what one of the Cook brothers, or if Ginsburg. I don't care what side of the aisle is on. These guys get paid. I mean, I think a Supreme Court justice makes 250,000 somewhere in along that range.
Just
Um,
Chief Justice
th-
Roberts makes, I think, over 265. So
okay,
they're not struggling with their paychecks, folks.
they're
Regardless
not
of
hurting for
what we
money.
agree
Yeah,
on, they're getting paid a handsome salary.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
we're
for
paying
sure.
them a handsome salary.
Yeah. Yeah, they get paid handsomely. They get plenty of perks of the office. I mean, they get staff, tons of vacation, tons of breaks. So benefits that the majority of Americans don't, you'll never get to see, you'll never get to enjoy. These people get it. And I understand, if you have wealthy friends and, we people do go on vacation with friends and people do. But when you're a Supreme Court justice, and I just it's the highest court of the land. There is no higher court. There should not be, and like I said, regardless of what side you sit on, just put the shoe on the other foot. Would you be okay with seeing Sotomayor go
No,
on a
no, that
lavish vacation with a billionaire Democrat donor? I wouldn't be,
no. I,
and
I will say I think that we'll have common ground here that I don't think any of them should be doing it. The I completely agree with you on that. However, again, back to the media. Is the media telling us what all of them are doing, or are they just going to single out one of them for one of them is doing on either side? Because CNN, MSNBC, and that gang can go after Justice Thomas real easy.
oh yeah.
Fox and everybody can go after Sotomayor and Katanji Brown, and So here's my problem with this. I agree with you, but are we being fair and accurate on the media where we're consuming this information from? I don't believe that to be true. If Thomas or any one of them did something wrong, I have my opinion. But are we getting all of the news? I don't think either the media is ever going to give us all the news, which causes a rift and a divide in this country because we're going to disagree on aspects of who the donor was, where did they go, how much did they spend, um, and do all the things that we'll never do. We'll never be able to do. And it seems like if you're in one of our three branches of government, you have all these entitlements that I don't understand because we work our asses off down here in peasant world. And when was the last time you've been on a yacht?
I can count with zero fingers the amount of
Yeah,
times
I
that
haven't.
I've been on one. So
I mean, they're all over the world.
but
So
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
that I will definitely side with you on that as even as a Republican. Um, does it
And to
look
bring it
bad?
back, 'cause- I know it's the media that's partly responsible, but also they have the ability to disclose these trips, and if it were disclosed, there wouldn't be an issue. It would be a non-issue. It wouldn't be a news story. Why aren't they disclosing trips like this on both sides? I don't want to pick on, it just happens to be those two justices that are in the news right now. But I don't believe any of them should be doing this. Or if you do it, there should be disclosure. You should have full transparency, so that the Americans don't think that there's something inappropriate going on. And
Yeah,
like I said, I understand a lot of these guys have wealthy friends, and you do networking, and you go to college with some of these guys, and they're just lifelong friends. They just happen to be rich. Fine, I have no problem with that. But have some disclosure, have some transparency, so that Americans don't think that anything inappropriate is going on. When you maintain that those questions there, I just think it leads to divisiveness that really isn't needed. They could just
it
disclose what
it does, and I think if people would try to really pay attention to our genuine sincerity, of what we're trying to do with this channel, I think we can bring the temperature down a long way. We can bring it
Yeah,
down quite a few degrees because it does frustrate me immensely. This whole conversation we're having, just in different ways than you, you know, um, and but you look back to the beginning of this conversation, we come back to the same two things: the media and the politicians. Well, they're not politicians, but our institution as government, and it's the same two things all the time that feed off of each other and make this humongous monster that you and I got to fight
yeah,
every day.
yep, that's very true. So Chris, move we're here now, we're in this position, this news came out. What do you think that Um, I mean, do you think there should be more disclosure? Do you believe that we're fine the way it is? They shouldn't have to disclose these trips, or I mean, should like they
No,
adopt a set of rules or a set of ethics
yeah,
rules for themselves?
I would agree with that. I think they need to have rules, and whatever
Yeah,
those rules are, I think we should have a say in them. Yeah, I think this should all be disclosed. Do I really deep down care if he went on a vacation with his friend? No, but what I do care about is if the rule is you have to disclose it, then you need to disclose it. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, I do think there should be rules, because it leads me to believe, even if it was just an innocent trip, why are you hiding?
yeah,
You know,
yeah. It could have been completely innocent, and we don't have any insight.
but
We
we
don't,
don't know.
like I said, if they're friends, fine. That's not a problem.
But
It
we
shouldn't be
don't
a
know
problem. It
that.
shouldn't be anybody.
We
We
don't
don't
know if
know, and that's what creates.
Yeah, we have no
Yeah,
idea if on one of these trips a Republican donor is, what are they talking about? It's none of our business, but are
yeah.
they talking about things that actually affect the Supreme Court? I don't know. You can have that
Is there a
argument,
case coming up, where they have an
and
interest in or things like that?
and
That's yeah,
I did do a little bit of research about the story that was going on with Neil Gorsuch. It was a real estate deal or something, and
yeah.
he sold a cabin or it was a multi-million-dollar place. Now there was three parties involved with that, um, in the sale of that ranch or whatever it was in Colorado. But that being said, if you read into it, the people who bought that actually had cases sitting in the front of the Supreme Court that they ruled on. Uh, there were several of the cases were ruled against. I forget the name of the lawyer. It was a large law firm. There were
Hmm.
four that were cited, I believe, if I remember correctly, that they sided with uh, this law firm, or the attorneys that were representing whatever. But there were several that didn't. So it opens up a can of worms, is basically what it does, because but the sale also was done, I believe, on that lodge that he had before he was a Supreme Court justice. I don't know, but the bottom line is yes. Yes, disclose all this stuff and just be honest, because if they're just honest trips and honest vacations with your friend, there's no reason you can't tell me or you or the rest of America. Any of them,
Right, exactly.
liberal
If it's
justices or conservative ones, just
yeah,
tell us the truth. And we have a real problem with that in this country, the truth.
yep, yep. So I mean, they should just adopt like every other federal justice. Any other federal judge has to disclose these trips, has to. So That's all I'm asking for. Same rules, or there's no oversight over the Supreme Court. It's part of the problem. Also, there are separate, co-equal branch of government. Congress does not have oversight over Supreme Court, and vice versa. They don't. They're co-equal branches, so they should adopt, a set of standards, and that way, it just alleviates. There wouldn't be a news
And you
story
know
if
what?
you just took a trip with your friend.
Here's the other side of that. So they adopt these new ethics rules. I think they actually are adopting some, if I ain't mistaken. They are working on a new line of ethics things that they have to follow, which I do agree with. But the other side of that is who's making up the rules? It ain't you and I. I guarantee if you and I were making up the rules, the list of things you have to comply with ethically would probably look a whole lot different than what they're coming up with. That's another
Oh yeah.
side of this that could piss me off because you and I, in the end, really don't have a say in this.
No, not at all. And you don't get to pick Supreme Court justices. They are the only ones that are elected for life, or not elected. They are, chosen there. They're appointed for life, and there is no oversight. Once they are appointed, there is no getting a Supreme Court justice out unless they go through impeachment, which is in this political environment, it's just impossible.
Yeah. So I think in the end we agree on the overall picture there. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to find the things that we can agree on at least a little bit, and how do you build on that? And
Yeah.
and as we just showed, it's we can successfully do that. But people need to get engaged. People need to get engaged with our country from local level. Josh taught me that a long time ago when we first met. He's an advocate of voting and participating in your local government. Your mayors, your school board, and things like that. I never was. I thought I can have a bigger impact going with the national elections. Don't worry about all that stuff. It doesn't matter. Well, actually, stand corrected. When Josh and I talked about that, and he's 100% correct. Everyone has to get engaged from a local level up. Can we fix everything? No, but we really need to pay attention to our government from every level, on the way up to the feds, the Supreme Court, because they end up in there by who we vote in as president. He has sole
Yeah.
authority of putting them in there. So does it eventually come back and bite us in the ass sometimes the way we vote? Yeah, potentially does. So we need to vote for the best possible person. And the Supreme Court issue we're having directly it goes directly back to us engaging in our own country, and we should.
That's exactly correct. I mean, you should be involved. Like Chris said, to get involved in your local politics. It's the ones that affect you. You will see those right away, as opposed to the national level politics. It's all important, but getting involved, getting on the grassroots level, and just kind of staying in touch with these politicians and advocating for what you
I
believe
mean,
in. I think is very important for
I
everybody.
mean, look at it. Just one name, Pete Buttigieg. He was a mayor,
Yeah.
right? That's a little bend wherever he came from. I'm not a fan of him, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole today. But my point is, he was a mayor of. Do you remember where it was? I don't know, Little Bend, Indiana, or something. Whatever it was, doesn't matter. Uh,
Indiana, I believe
yeah,
so. Yeah.
but he was low level, exactly what we're talking about. Down here at
Hmm.
our local level, look where he wound up in our federal government. So if you think
Yep.
our local politicians aren't important to get your information and vote correctly, well, he's a perfect example. He worked himself right up into our federal government.
That's exactly correct.
So
Yep.
that's all I got today. I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole. I'm in a good mood. I don't want to get all riled up today. And you know, so that's all I got there, brother. Obviously we work together, so we got to get ready to go to work here shortly anyway. And I don't want to go to work stroking out because of politics.
Yeah, exactly. So, as you guys can see, we do get along. We are able to find things that we do have common ground in. It's not always back and forth and fighting and things like that. So we believe this is what every American should be doing, and have these conversations. I think it's good for the country.
Yeah. You don't have to be afraid of the other side of the aisle. Simple as that. I
Yeah.
mean, it's okay for them to have their opinion. It's okay for me to have mine. And, we've heard the critiques of, you guys seem to agree an awful lot. Correct. That's the point, folks.
Most Americans, you will find out. You guys can be extreme opposite ends of the aisle, and go talk to your neighbor, and you'll see how much
If you're
more.
looking for
You
a
know,
boxing match, now we can't really physically do that because he's straight 200 miles away from where I'm at right now. But if that's what you're looking for, then you guys subscribe to that channel who wants to act like a bunch of weirdos and boobs. And we will have our heated moments, but at the end, we will always come out the other end of this tunnel still friends, still Americans, and still patriots. And we think everybody else should be doing the same thing. After all that
exactly
said,
right.
everybody come back next week. We promise we're going to keep bringing as good a comment and try to keep everybody keep everybody as interested as possible. And I'll see everybody next week. And Josh, I'll see you at work later.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a good night.
All right, man.